Good morning, you two-wheeled knuckleheads. This is the podcast that recaps all the racing action that has happened over the weekend. Let's get going. What's up, Coach?
Good morning, my man. How are you?
I'm doing marvelous. Bitcoin seems to be doing well, and I am happy about this. We need more green. But other than that, let me get back in here. We had some really good. Okay, we were talking off the air here, and maybe some context. Okay. I took my wife and kid. We all had a family date night. I took them to Snow White because, like, at this point, having a 3-year-old to have any excuse to go to the movies, I'm down. So Snow White came out, and it was definitely different than Snow White is supposed to be this like white girl, pure white, red, and the witch was played by Wonder Woman. She was the attractive girl in the whole thing, not Snow White, and it's actually reversed in the whole thing. But anyway, the Seven Dwarfs, Paige was like, "Johnny, you're fucking grumpy," and I was like, "What? I'm grumpy." So that goes along with what I was saying about this entire weekend. If you watch my track analysis video, I was saying that this sand section is silly. We're not going to see any passing in it. And there's going to be hard to have any sort of racing action going on. And then my reaction live show, I kind of said as much, where it was boring for a Triple Crown, and reasons as to why. But talking with you off air, you're like, "Dude, there was such good racing action," and I'm like, "No, there wasn't, Coach. No, there wasn't." So, do you want to elaborate a little bit on what you were telling me off air?
Well, the thing that I was excited watching the racing itself is, Seth Hammaker is on fire right now. Some people are saying it's because the field's decimated, and that's just racing. People have said for years that Dunge won because the best weren't in the field. But, you've got to be in it to win it. And I just think that I don't want to use the word fair or unfair, because in today's day and age, I think that's a little bit adulterated. But Seth Hammaker's on fire. And if you go back, let's just go back 2 short years when you look at how good Forkner was when he was on the track, and to watch Seth Hammaker go by Forkner in those whoops. Now, I know I have total mad respect for everything that Forkner's been through over the last year, especially with that brain surgery. No, that's not a dig on Forkner at all. It just blows my mind how quickly a year, 2 years changes, changes the landscape of racing. We've got this Ducati ride that's coming up. Yeah, Stewart, Dungey. And then you look at the idea that we're so fortunate we have this Ducati ride that's coming up, and you have the the musical chairs going on over at Triumph. So there's a lot of exciting things going on. But at the end of this year, help me out, Johnny, is there 3 or maybe even 4 guys, their 450 deal is up? So
first elaborate on Triumph with their musical chairs.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
First, elaborate on Triumph with the musical chairs for the viewers.
Well, the thing with the Triumph is we know Jordan Smith has got a guaranteed 450 ride, but we know that Forkner's got an extended 250 contract, and we know that Jalek Swald has got a 2-year extension. So that Triumph program is pretty solidified. But you look at the idea that there's a lot of questions behind the scenes. Who goes to Ducati for that debut? We knew Anderson was on the short list, but his results aren't going to get him at the top of the roster. We know Barsha's contract's up. He's not really blowing the world apart. We know Mookie, I don't think Husqvarna is going to be around next year. So that 450 program, where does Mookie go? And then RJ Hampshire is supposed to go to the 450. And if the Husky program's not there, he could end up at Ducati. So now you've got what's going on at Ducati. There was some scuttlebutt that Sexton was wanting to go over there, but now I'm hearing Sexton's pretty comfortable at KTM. So
which
That
is
race, watching who's passing who,
crazy.
there's a lot of musical chairs. Go ahead, excuse me, Johnny.
That has to be because now he's actually getting his checks cleared from KTM after the influx of $300 million or so. Because
Yeah.
I was hearing rumors that he hadn't been paid for a little while.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I've heard the same thing from a very reliable source that he nor Vial were getting paid. But the idea here is, and again, I've never spoken to Chase Sexton in person ever. But think about this. Was he willing to continue to keep his nose down and his elbows up just because, again, we've talked about it early in the show, earlier in the season. If everything's falling apart at KTM and Sexton can show that he's a mental monster and he could persevere, and then he came out and he was showing that, right? Had a couple bad races, then comes back and rebounds this weekend. We don't realize it, but behind the scenes, these guys are constantly fighting for their next job. Now, if because people, well, I would assume our listeners and understand this, but Sexton can buy himself out of his contract and go anywhere he wants. Just every rider can. So if you're not happy with the program, we saw Webb. He supposedly parted ways with KTM midseason. We had never seen that before. And then the idea that Sexton is not happy with the KTM or the financial stability of it, then all of a sudden he got thrown into the hopper for Ducati. Now, I had some questions about it because I don't think that Ducati is completely shaken down yet. And would Sexton want to be somebody who would be on the development side? And then in the same breath, look at when Dungey left Suzuki and went to KTM.
Baby, I'm gonna come get.
He followed Roger DeCoster over there on good faith, and it worked out really well, right? Got KTM its first Supercross win, first Supercross title, and then its own outdoor motocross title. So there's a lot of history that's in the making right now in our sport. I think it's a very exciting time. That's why I was so excited watching the racing, because that 450 class, yeah, we're enjoying a triple crown. I personally love triple crowns, but behind the scenes, people's value are going up and down like your Bitcoin graph is. It's like so amazing how.
See, you had some context to the race. Me just watching and just analyzing just what was happening. I was like, dude, these guys are essentially start to finish where they're going. Besides somebody like a Seth who came through the field, and I was disappointed with how he finished. Off. I believe
he was fourth. Yeah, he went 9-1-1 for fourth.
And I think just to make it more exciting, because it's already confusing for the viewers. If you were going to a futures race for the first time and have somebody, okay, we're explaining, there's no qualifying, there's no heat races, there's no LCQ. And even that is kind of confusing for somebody that's not used to motocross and supercross in general. But then to say, here's 3 motos, why not just make it more entertaining, right? So that you have potentially, I don't want to make it sound bad, but you have some guys that arguably shouldn't be up front because the gate positions were swamped. You win your race 1, you are now last gate pick, and such, you were last, now you're first. I think that would just make things so much more entertaining, because by the last race, things were pretty much set in stone. RJ wasn't really attacking, and Cooper Webb was out front. Sexton, I was surprised that Sexton phoned it in for second. Like, that shows growth, that he's not going to make the same mistake over and over again, because he already did that in Arlington. But I wanted reason for him to push, not just a paycheck push, but just push for points.
Yeah, I totally agree with your recap show, because if you're pushing for points, right, it's win the war, win the entire war as well as the battle. And I agree with you. If we had seen a little bit more of that push, but Johnny, you've said that ever since the first Triple Crown came out, and I totally agree with you. And it's difficult because, I'm still one of the biggest fans in the sport. I love this sport. No matter what they do, we're always going to find something to critique them. I love the idea that we get to see them out there for more than just one race. I do like the idea that you get one bad start in the main event and you end up finishing 9th, and then that's what you have to go home with, where you do get a chance to redeem yourself. I know it's very hard on the athletes and the team to be able to turn that bike around quickly, but I look at the amount of time that the spectators get to see their stars, and I think this is the best format that's out there. But I do think, even like with practice, I think if you do, and I apologize, Johnny, is it MotoGP? You follow that pretty closely. Doesn't MotoGP, or is it MXGPs? The time practice gives them a point. Like they only do top 5, but isn't there a point system for qualifying?
God, MotoGP, they do a sprint race to make things more entertaining.
Okay.
So it's like an extra moto to begin with. So it's probably MXGP, and it's
Okay.
sad that I don't know that. Like
And I
Lucas Coolin
apologize.
in the
Yeah.
qualifying race this weekend went down super hard. I need to find that video.
Yeah. Well, and I don't mean to interrupt you in that thread of thought, but it does go back to, like you're saying, if the qualifying had a point on it, because I mean, what is Cooper Webb renowned for saying? He's not a good qualifier because they don't pay for qualifying. I mean, that pretty much just sums it up, And Webb he's always a good qualifier, but he's never the guy that sets the world ablaze. And when you have a triple crown like that, perfect example with Seth, right? If he blew the first moto, and who cares if he's winning the next 2? If you're RJ Hampshire, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he go 2, 3, 3 or bottom line is he was in that top 3, but he knew Seth had a 9th in the first moto. He's not going to attack him. No need to.
No, well,
So,
and RJ is known for doing the Sexton of the 250 class with having the wind and losing it. But this Stormbreaker, he says that the future race was pure chaos. And I agree. Like those guys, watching qualifying is even ridiculous. The last futures race that I was at Glendale, and in qualifying, I was like, wait, is this a moto? What's going on? Because guys were taking each other out left and right, and it was just qualifying. And so I asked him after the race, like, hey guys, cool your heels a little bit. Like, you want to make it to the main event here. And that's just them being 12 to 17, sometimes some of them 19, not 12, but most of them are like,
point
I think
well
there's a
taken.
kid that was 14.
But the problem is that qualifying, that's their gate selection. So it's a very, very, very difficult thing because
Here we go.
they're
Fact
expected.
finder. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much. Well, and that's the thing that's so difficult is these guys are trying to learn Supercross. A lot of the guys do get to ride Supercross everybody that you see out there in the futures is riding a Supercross track on the weekend. That's just the bottom line. But the fact that they're out there and they're killing each other in practice because they know their qualifying time is their gate selection, nothing different than what the night show has to do. But I just don't think, I've always said, why don't we do it NASCAR style, where you have one person on the track, you're allowed to be out there for 3 laps, and you're best of 3 with the track by yourself. Because then you would know Johnny's going to go at 9:03, Rob's going at 9:06, Tim's going at 9:09, and you get one track, you get 3 laps, best lap of the 3. Now, again, people would argue the person at the back gets the track that's most chewed up, but it's not much better than what they're doing right now. You get somebody who tries to lay a heater down, and the next thing you know, it's a wash.
Well, Coach, I would argue that with Webb, with his lack of qualifying speed, it favors him more now with the metal gate because he knows that gate selection isn't as important as it used to be.
Totally agree.
His biggest trait is his racecraft, where he's able to capitalize on other people's errors by not making as many. And it seems every year that there is just decimation of the field. 450s, you've got both the Honda guys out, Eli's out, Roxon now has an AC joint injury, somebody's messing with their knee. Like it's a bummer. In the 250 class, which I was bummed about, was Max's crash where he broke his fibula, and that's the small bone in your lower leg. It's correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, but that's the bone that's non-weight bearing. Like if you do break that, you can still walk on it, correct?
Yes, you're correct. To an extent, like anything, right? Depends on the magnitude of the break, where in the bone the break is at. Um, this isn't, it's kind of brutal to watch because we know what happens now. So when you watch the screen, but watch where he grabs right where the knee brace attaches to the top of the leg. And that's the part that is, it just makes you wonder. It's like he's grabbing with his left hand right there. Now, it could just be coincidental, but um, if you were somebody watching this and we didn't know the results, I don't think, like, let's just say you watch that and let's say that Max does not grab his leg. Looks like his head took more of a hit than his leg did. But then as soon as he grabs his leg and then you watch the replay, you can see that the leg is laterally rotated. And that just means his left leg is, if you watch when he lands, watch his left leg pointing, the front of his boots are pointing outward when he lands. And so when you land, that lateral
Oh,
torque
so it
is
twisted. There was
that's
some
what
torque
pops
there.
the fibula. Exactly. But
And
let's face it. I mean, excuse me. Go ahead, Johnny.
he just jumped a quad. So the amount of inertia, like this doesn't look that bad, just jumping off the bike and landing.
No.
But he's going from 35 miles an hour with an obscene amount of force to then just dead stop.
Yeah. Well, fall out of the sky, jump off the roof of your house, right? 10 feet, and land with your left foot at a 45-degree pitch, and you'll see what happens. And it's just, if, and what's crazy is you watch some of the get offs that these guys have, you wouldn't have thought it would have broken that, but because it's, as you've articulated already, it's not like the tibia, which is that if you guys reach down, grab the big thick bone that makes up your shin bone, that's the tibia, and then the fibula is just to the outside of that. But it's that pitch of the foot outward that smashes, that just torqued it. But it's just frustrating that Max is, if you think about the last 3 years, has been so good at the beginning of the season, and then something seems to always reach up and bite him. And then in this case, that whole section, watching practice, it was brutal to watch those guys. Everybody struggled in that section. I don't care who you were. I don't think
Well, I
anybody
did like
polished
that
that.
section. Like I
Yeah,
said
it
in my
was
analysis,
tough.
I said that was the one good thing about this track was that area where guys
Yeah.
could do different rhythms, but then it was into the 90 and so on and so forth.
It looked like either, like in that case, you'd have a tendency to either over jump it or just the timing of it was pretty difficult. And it made for an interesting section when the night race came, because all it took was just that slightest little bit of a bobble. And then, other races you could have a mess up here or there, and it didn't seem to cost you as much. But this weekend seemed to be more than usual.
Yeah, that dirt was crazy because it was like good, but then it became dry and sort of loamy where it got choppy. The ruts
Mm-hmm.
started getting like curbs out because you
Yeah.
saw guys, there was like huge holes everywhere, which
Did
was
you see that? You see that cup right before they get to the mechanic? They come into that right hander. They had that hay bale right there, and they were like using it as a curb to bounce off of it. I was just waiting for somebody to just completely get slapped sideways on it. It was the craziest
yeah,
section.
I mean, it's the 90 problem. They had
Yeah,
to build the berm where the berm doesn't go naturally, almost like a curve, right? Like a road
flow
race
into the
track. It
next
literally
straightaway.
goes 90. So they
Yeah,
build where here's the 90, which I get it because you don't want to just have guys jump, have the corner go straight into the gate, you
yeah.
know, but it creates guys coming out because they're not going to use the berm. And so they come out and then they're going to hit the end of it, come back and
Well, and
and
it just keeps getting deeper, and it keeps getting deeper, and it gets sharper and sharper. And it was interesting because if you watch the guys in the front, they would hit it, and their bikes would just absorb it and go straight. I would have loved to see the privateers in the back,
coach,
even though they're on good stuff. That's
your
brutal.
thought of this too is 805 says, if you were Sexton, are you worried about Anderson? And I would say no, because Anderson, A, is not in the points, and B, he was taken out by Cooper as well, and C, you've pretty much proven that you're faster than he is. You're not going to have many times where you're near him on the track, and your confidence is higher. And these guys are professional. They know that they're not going to really ruin a championship. And also, Sexton is just as big as Anderson, where Cooper Webb is not quite as big as Anderson. So I don't think he's got anything to worry about. I think Anderson needs to just get out of whatever hole he is in and start getting some podiums. Because for Malcolm to win a race and not Anderson, I think is crazy.
Yeah, to answer your question, I think Anderson's going to obliterate Sexton when he gets a chance. And you saw you saw that in the next heat, in the next round, right? I mean, Anderson actually even slowed up to give him the nod in that right hander at the beginning of the moto.
Well, that just ruins his race.
Yeah, but what does Anderson have to lose? But what does Anderson have to lose at this point? See, that's the problem. You know, Johnny, you know this. You're very good on these philosophical comments. You know, when a guy's got nothing to lose, he's the most dangerous guy.
All right.
And yeah, he had a bad weekend, that's for sure. I apologize, I missed who it was in the comments. Said he was on the ground a lot. But you could see it in the next heat race. You know, Anderson doesn't forget. I don't think he's going to play childish games, but you've got to admit, I mean, Sexton just sawed his front wheel off. And whether you like it or not, call it racing. I think it's racing. But historically with Anderson, you poke the bear. He doesn't forget. And even in the commentating, they alluded to the idea, hey, I think it was JT Money. I love JT Money. I think JT was the one that said, let's not forget these guys had some history. I think it was last summer or something. And I think it's cool getting the how much money will he get off his mugshot shirt? It's going to be a lot, I can tell you that. But no, I think with Anderson, he is definitely somebody that never forgets. I don't think he's going to do anything that's, you know, I don't want to say malicious, but he doesn't forget. And you poke the bear. And if you look at the way his front wheel got sawed off, and I think the other thing that hurts Sexton, was in the post-race interview, he didn't even allude to the idea like, hey, I didn't mean to saw off Anderson's front wheel. He's just like, you know, gave himself credit for moving to the front of the pack. And I'm like, that was probably your biggest mistake, in my opinion. If you'd said something on the podium, you could say, hey, look, I apologize. I didn't mean to do it. Then you could go over, shake hands, and apologize. But to not even acknowledge it, like, yep, I'll saw your wheel off again. And you saw it in the next moto. Anderson, like, bumped him. And I think it'll get nasty if it comes down to it.
I'm a huge Anderson fan. And Sexton has one of the biggest egos of everybody in the field, which it kind of goes hand in hand with being at the top of any profession, right? I just sometimes think there's certain riders that take it to an extreme here. But honestly, Coach, what I thought was the most exciting part about the entire weekend was finding out that Deegan was doing donuts in a parking lot and went to jail and, you know, had $1,000 bond. And I want your thoughts on it too, because he is doing the perfect, like, look at this. People's Magazine picked up this story. That's huge, right? They're the gossip central of, of really anything, right? And I think I've got his mugshot. I thought I had his mugshot somewhere. Yeah. Right.
It's been everywhere. Everybody has seen it.
Look at what he does, as opposed to trying to sweep it under the rug. He's just embracing it and making a joke of it. And I believe on his Instagram, look at here's these shirts that you can buy. And this is exactly like the J-Law, free J-Law type stuff. And this to me seems just marketing 101 of turning a bad situation into a good situation.
Well, first and foremost, when you've got 1 million followers or whatever he's got, whether it be on YouTube or whether it's on Instagram, I don't do TikTok, so I don't know if he's on TikTok or not, but
he is.
That's it. It just comes with the environment, right? His mom and dad, particularly his dad, is very smart. Like you said, they're going to turn the situation into an opportunity. But here's where we have to back the train up. He was doing donuts in a parking lot. Who cares? Now, if the parking lot was filled with a bunch of grandmas in their grocery carts and he's doing donuts, yeah, that was uncool. But who cares if he's in Cairo, Georgia in an R8? It's going to stand out in a Cairo, Georgia environment. I mean, who cares? What I have a problem with this is, remember when James Stewart put the police lights up on his brother's truck on the way to the Orlando International Airport? And I don't know if you remember that conversation, Johnny, but you know, James takes Malcolm's truck. They're leaving Haines City. They're on the way to Orlando International. And James gets one of those long strobe lights and he puts it up in the dashboard and he gets right up on the back of the car. And he's just like tailgating the car in front of him. And then he finally goes around him. And when he gets next to the car, the police officer puts his badge up against the window. And then they realize James is being driven to the airport by somebody. They realize it's a car full of undercover police officers. So he hauls ass. Well, they follow him all the way to the Orlando International Airport. And of course, he gets arrested. And it's interesting, right? On the local news here in Orlando, here's James Stewart walking out of jail. You know, he's impersonating a police officer. He's now running from the police department. You know, now put that on the same level of Haiden Deegan doing donuts in his own R8 in a parking lot. Is it really something that we need to put on the front page news? No. But when you've got that kind of a following, of course it's going to be. So who cares? I love Travis Pastrana, but we all remember when he got a little out of control, a lot out of control with the Corvette, right? He was not drag racing, but hauling ass by his house. And he paralyzed the guy that was in the car with him. And we don't talk about that. If you're going to put things on levels of quote-unquote offense.
I thought he killed him, to be honest. I thought he killed him.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was paralysis, but let's face it, he's doing donuts in a parking lot compared to wrecking a Corvette off the edge of a mountain and either maiming somebody or killing somebody or running from the police officers, impersonating a police officer. And we want to compare that to Haiden Deegan. To me, like you say, it's a blip on the map. I love the fact that Brian and Haiden and his parents, with his, they're going to turn into a merchandise opportunity. And the fact that he can laugh at himself, it wasn't like he was drinking and driving and he killed somebody. It's just move on. But it's unfortunately with his level of clout, he's an easy punching bag, but who cares? Like I never did a donut in my parents' car because my dad said he would, if I ever got in trouble or I got caught destroying my parents' car, my dad's like, you'll never drive one of our cars ever again. Well, that's his R8. He can do whatever the heck he wants with it. Now, you may or may not agree with it. Like I look at it as I don't want to replace the tires, but he's a 19-year-old kid and he's going to have fun in his R8. Leave it alone. One person sent me a text to say he needs to do it on the racetrack. I'm like, wait, he's going to go pay to go to a racetrack to do donuts? Come on. I mean, how many times have you seen someone do it in the intersection? But yeah, it's you got to let it go. But it is easy pickings to get after Haiden. Not to change the subject from his arrest, but now he's getting pushed back because they say his interviews on the podium are too blasé. So he either goes from being too cocky or now he's too blasé. So just an example that he's not going to be able to win. And I think he's getting a little taste of what Jet has been going through the last couple seasons for sure. So what's this? It's a big nothing burger, but it's a story because of it. Cody Schott got pulled over for doing wheelies on a Vespa in a nursing home, wouldn't make local news. Yeah, absolutely right, guy. Absolutely.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a true story or not. But yeah, okay, these guys are saying no, he got paralyzed. Well, that's
it still sucks.
Yeah.
And I know Travis was very remorseful of it.
And I'm pretty sure that made national news and everything as well, with just because of fame. And like you said, Coach, just because these guys, hey, look, this is what I'm looking at. But just because of his following, like you said, this is why so many people are looking at it. So honestly, I think what he's doing is great. As opposed to coming out and apologizing for being a 19-year-old kid with money in a car that shouldn't be on the road, because it's like having the problem I have with street bikes is why buy a street bike? Because you have to ride around town in first gear.
Yeah.
It's just no fun. You're going to open it up, right? So that's exactly what he was doing. And he was doing donuts around nobody. And
you got to remember. Well, Johnny, have you been to Cairo, Georgia?
I've driven through it, but no.
Yeah, I mean, as you saw, it's not the biggest town in the world, right? There's not a lot to do there. It's just a conglomerate of a bunch of motocross tracks, and then you get into downtown Thomasville. I mean, the highlight of downtown is the YMCA. It's a pretty small town, and R8 is going to stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, out there, all you have is a lot of pickup trucks because there's a lot of motorcycles, a lot of Sprinter vans, and then coming down the streets in R8, it's either going to be Deegan or it's going to be one of the Star Yamaha boys. It's pretty easy pickings in the big city of Cairo. I can tell you that. But I don't think it justifies, well, think about this, how cool it's going to be. He's going to make $250,000 on his getting a ticket or getting arrested for doing donuts.
Yeah,
which I don't understand. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to sound like a goody two shoes here. I'm going to turn 57 this year, and I've never gotten a speeding ticket. I've never even been pulled over. So why would you?
Yeah, you are goody
two
shoes.
Well, my dad put the fear of God in me. My dad's like, you get a ticket. I mean, he threatened to take my license away when I was driving his cars, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just a tightwad with money. So I'm not going to give away money for a speeding ticket. And I don't like to replace tires and maintenance, but why would you get arrested for doing donuts? Did they just declare it as dangerous driving or?
Yeah, that's, I believe.
But what police officer wouldn't normally just give a warning and a ticket, say, hey, nice car, stop doing it. But to actually go beyond getting a ticket for reckless driving and then to get arrested on top of that, it's just like, I don't know, in a parking lot going 30 miles an hour in a circle?
There's probably more to it because I'm sure the car got
impounded,
and he may have, maybe he wasn't the nicest to the officer, because that's usually what happens when you get arrested.
Oh, I just got corrected by Motorboat, and evidently he was at the beach. He was not in Cairo. So thank you, Motorboat. I didn't know that.
Then maybe that has something to do with it. I remember one time with my dad, we were leaving the ice races, and I fucking hated the ice races because
I just get picture you on the ice. Sorry,
dude. I won a little mini championship, but it was the stupidest thing ever. No front brake, and you've got screws in your tires, and you're just going around a lake in a circle. I was like this, and it's cold as shit. But anyway, I was like 12 years old. I was sitting in the middle of our van, and because I had my brother and then my dad, and then in the middle there was just our cooler that we threw all the beer cans from the whole day in. And my dad was getting pulled over, and I was trying to hide all the beer cans. This officer comes up, and then my dad is just being a smart aleck to the cop, and just like, I don't even remember what he said, but he totally provoked. And so then he gets out, and that was a couple DUIs later, but it was kind of caused by him just being a smart ass to it. Sure. So I wonder if Deegan was doing the same thing.
Come on, man. Deegan would never be a smart aleck. Come on. 19 years old, worth $10 million. What makes you think he'd be smart aleck and invincible?
And also at his age, he's getting ready to trying to make his own, move out on his own, make his own life. Like we saw it with the Bubba's World deal, where Stewart was like, hey, I need to just leave my parents' house. I've got the money. Like, I want to buy this place just away and do my own thing. So I think that.
But see, that's what's sad about that Bubba's World, is that was a complete farce. That was a rented house in Islesworth. That was all done by MTV. That was not his house at all. I mean, James's parents still live in the same property as he does right now in Haines City. So it just, again, it shows you the power of TV. There was no truth to any of that.
But my point being is, like, you see it most often. Kids want to get, they want to be their own person. They want to be their own man. Not.
Well, you're tight with the Hansons, right? So you saw it firsthand with Josh and his dad.
Yeah, Josh is quite a bit older than I am. So I was on 50s when he was on 80s when I was taking their schools. But I'm
that whole
much
transition
closer with his dad, Donnie. Donnie and I are real close. But
we've all heard the stories of Josh, owning 3 Lambos. It's these guys have to become their own men eventually. And that's the hard part with our sport. We could talk about that on a whole different show, about just that idea of a lot of these parents think that when their athlete, when their son makes it, and all the effort and resources that they've put in, how do you put a fair and equitable payback with Brian and his own success? Does he take any of the money from from Haiden or his sister as a part of it? Maybe it's an agency fee. Who knows? It's none of our business, but it's definitely, it all
But it's
comes
gossip, right? And he's
well, it
kind
also,
of injected himself
yeah.
into the sport and has changed it for a lot. I saw that like Julian Beaumer posted a picture of his mug shot
Yeah.
on his Instagram, which
Instagram.
I thought was playful and it was good. But
well, if you don't laugh at it, right, it's what else are you going to do? Again, he didn't do anything that's truly harmful. It was stated in the chat room here. If doing donuts is now illegal in the country, what kind of country am I living in? And I have to agree with it. If you're not harming anybody, so
yeah, it is interesting because when I was 17 at the time, and I took my brother's Tundra, and it was like 2 in the morning, and I was doing donuts around one of the local parking lots, and I was, going around the corners in fourth gear, and then I was jamming it into two-wheel drive, or I'm sorry, I was four-wheel drive, then jamming it into two-wheel drive, and I ended up breaking and just destroying the whole differential of the four-wheel drive. And the cop showed up, and I just apologized, and I had my friends with me. They checked to see if I had any alcohol, and I didn't have any alcohol, so it was just there. But I did like $2,400 worth of damage to my brother's truck, and but I didn't get arrested. So it's like,
right.
that's what you're gonna do as a kid. But again, his reach is what makes national news here. And sorry, I keep having that up there. But it is funny, and
Hey, here's a question for you, though, Johnny. Is that an orange jumpsuit, or is that just happened to be coincidental that was the button-up polo that he was wearing?
I don't know.
It doesn't help that it's
I've
orange.
never been booked, so maybe
Yeah.
somebody in the chat room, if you are actually getting arrested, do they put that stuff in there? Or I think you just are in your same holding block, you're in your same clothes, and then it's not until you actually go somewhere. So I think the orange thing was just a coincidental. But Coach, just get your last little take on, do you think Sexton is going to be able to win the championship if he's got the momentum going rather than Cooper Webb? Because I've got a screaming toddler that I have gotten sick, and so she's being difficult here. So I know I'm kind of telling you what kind of wrap this up here.
Yeah,
But
no worries at all, man. This is your show, and we appreciate you squeezing this in, especially because I know you've not been feeling good, and now your little one isn't either. Um, your guess is as good as mine. We've gotten to a point now. I hate to say it, but you don't know what you're going to get with Sexton. Ricky Carmichael is on the record saying if James stayed up, he knew James was going to win. He just had to bank on the idea that James would wreck, and that gave him a chance to win. And I think that's what we're going to see with Sexton. One thing you can count on is that Coop will be consistent. But in regards to what Sexton, he either wins by a country mile or he grenades himself. And I wish I could tell you, I have no confidence that he won't win, and I don't have confidence that he will win, because you just never know. There's no consistency on when he grenades. So I have no idea. I will just say Cooper will be there every weekend, and it'll be like Ricky. If James fell enough, Ricky won. And if he didn't, like Ricky said, no one was going to touch James. Even Dunn said that on the Gypsy Tales podcast. When you're racing against James, it was just next level. So,
well, finish your thought, Coach.
No, that's it. It's just I'm looking forward to the outdoors because I want to see Jet get back into the mix with these two guys. I'd love to see if Eli comes back. Not to not be enjoying Supercross, but that's kind of where my curiosity is to see when we get, because we've seen a breakout in Webb. You and I on our first show together of the year when we did our predictions, I had it going Jet, and then I had it going Webb, and then I had it going Eli. And no, excuse me, I think I had Eli second and then Webb third. But I would have never thought Webb would be as good as he has been this year. Well, not because he's not good, but he's done some things that really surprised me this year. My bad, Johnny.
In this last race at Alabama, Cooper caught Sexton and forced him
Mhm.
into a mistake where Sexton almost crashed just by
Yeah.
having the ass end slide out on him. And then he
Mhm.
railed it back in, but he got caught.
Yeah.
So to me, this is telling you that Sexton is looking behind him, not in front of him, and he's sometimes not the fastest guy on the track. Cooper Webb can prove that he can run the pace at times. So I'm pretty sure that Webb, I've said it since Daytona. If Sexton does not win Daytona, it's over. Webb is the champion, and I continue to agree with that. But we've got some of the individuals saying that there was fake IDs in Deegan's car. That's why they arrested him. And that's, allegedly, right? This is
Sure.
allegedly, because that to me seems like much higher.
Hey, Johnny, I want to come back to what you just said there was Sexton. Did you
Yeah,
happen to
I'm going
listen?
back to
Did you happen to listen to the podcast with Dunge with Gypsy Tales?
well, from a while ago.
Yeah. The second one that he did, not the first one, but the second one that he did, I guess it was maybe a couple months ago, maybe even a month ago.
Okay, you'd have to recap
Well,
with me.
the reason why I bring it up in this context is, literally Ryan was on the podcast quoted as saying that Roger DeCoster sat him down and said that if he hadn't turned it around, because if you remember, actually, I think it was when they were still at Suzuki, but like, no, I think it was at KTM. I can't remember, but no, it was at KTM because Dunge was talking about the idea that Roxon had come over and Dunge was supposed to be the next heir apparent. And then you have Roxon that moved up from the 250 class to the 450 and immediately just started stomping. And he said that Roger brought him in there and said, we've got to turn this around or you're going to lose your job. And it makes me wonder with Sexton. Yeah, it's his first year over there from Honda. I get all that. Or is this his second year, Johnny? This is first year, isn't it? He was with Honda last year. Times goes by so fast. I apologize, guys.
No,
How
he had
long
the
is
number one plate on last year. This is his second year.
second year, right? That's right, because he supposedly was shaking the bike down. But how patient does Ian Harrison and Roger stay with Sexton being inconsistent? When you hear,
But I mean, who else do they have, Coach? They have AP. Like that's not a
oh no,
championship contender.
no, I'm not saying that they'll keep AP. You've got what happens if Vial wins a championship? He's got to go up, right? So now he's the 450 rider at KTM. You also have some musical chairs, like we said earlier. You've got four big guys whose spots are open. I'm not saying they're going to let Sexton go. I'm just talking about you were talking about racing behind you. Can you imagine? You've got Roger and you've got Ian in front of you. Like, hey man, you can't do this anymore. Well, as soon as I say you don't think about something, right? Don't blow this. Don't do that. You think the exact opposite. It's an example I've done before. Don't think about a pink cow with black spots. Don't think about a pink cow with black spots. Your brain does it. So now you're being told, don't blow it. Don't throw it away. Don't throw it away. Don't throw it away. And like you said, comes out of the corner, racing behind him, comes around on him. It's just like, so I thought that was a pretty powerful comment that Dunge had said. It's a pressure cooker. It doesn't matter if it's Roger. It doesn't matter if it's Bobby Reagan at Star. It's not about Roger or Ian Harrison at KTM. It's just the environment of success. Like Dunge said, you're getting paid very well to win. And with Dunge not being able to close the deal, it makes you wonder, like with Sexton, if he's not able to keep the consistency up, what does the conversation look like? What options does he have?
No,
pretty interesting.
Spot on. I would like to see that because he had like a 4-year deal with KTM that they don't have any other options, but they do have Tom Vial. But I don't see Tom Vial as a supercross 450 contender like I do Sexton is the
Right.
main difference there.
Yeah.
But
I agree with you.
Guys, hey, if you like this type of content, make sure you hit that subscribe and notification icon. And Coach, as always, it's a pleasure having you there. I know you've got your membership going on with a small discount for anybody that's looking for youth classes from nutrition to in the gym for fitness to also just the mental aspect. That's at CompleteRacingSolutions.com. But guys, till next time, keep it WFO and let's have a hell of a week.